How did you get started in the film industry? Like I know you directed the documentary Confessions of a Superhero, but what did you do before that?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a youngster growing up in and around Washington, D.C. and Maryland, wasn't really exposed to the arts. I came from, you know, you get a job, you get benefits, that's what you go for. You look for a profession. I was always creative, but I didn't know that you could be an artist for a living. And so went to college. I went to university in New Orleans at Tulane University. I got a degree in finance. I worked on Wall Street very briefly, actually in the World Trade Center, obviously before 9/11. And I worked there for 6 weeks, 6 weeks only. And then I stopped and decided I wanted to be an artist. At that point, I was in New York and exposed to more art and also seeing more films coming out by diverse filmmakers all over the place, not just, big blockbusters, but, kind of grittier, authentic, moodier films that I connected with, character-driven films I connected with by filmmakers that weren't necessarily from Los Angeles or New York, and realized that, maybe this is something I could go for. And so I did that and I moved back. I made that decision and I moved back to New Orleans. And I don't know why I'm laughing, but I guess in hindsight, it's funny. One night I was held up at gunpoint. Me and a friend were mugged. And at the time, New Orleans was like considered the murder capital of the country. And I was inspired to do a short documentary on violent crime in America through the microcosm of New Orleans, and really trying to dissect it and three-dimensionalize it rather than, um, being curious rather than being judgmental, and really dissecting it. And I went into low-income housing projects and spoke to mothers who had lost their children to gun violence. I went to a pretty infamous prison in Louisiana called um, Angola, which is where they filmed Monsters Ball and Dead Man Walking. And I didn't know what I was doing because I'd never made anything before and I didn't go to film school. So that, in a way, was my film school. But still a lot more to learn. So after that, I moved back to Manhattan where I just started at the bottom. I was a production assistant and worked on everything from independent film to commercials to music videos, to big films. I'd PA, then I'd coordinate, then I'd assistant direct, and just hard work, grueling work, and but soaking it in and learning. And then, and I'd make things on the side, and eventually I had an opportunity to work with a producer named Jamie Patrikoff, who, come full circle, produced MADU. 20 years later, was starting a documentary series for ESPN called The Life. And it was, I guess you could call it a sports documentary series, but really not about athletes on the court or the field, but really the humanity behind it and what makes them tick. And since I directed that, that's all I've ever done.
And like of all of the projects for you to do, like what inspired you to make this story about this specific dancer, Anthony MADU from Nigeria?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things happened between that first directing gig and now. Learning, growing, making mistakes and learning from that, messing up and learning from that, learning the hard way, and finding my voice, how I like to tell a story, not better or worse than anyone else, just different. And so I realized that what I love to do is tell character-driven stories that have universal human themes, that say something about us that we can all relate to beyond what the hook is, in this case, ballet. And then also, I kind of nerd out on craft. So I love to really challenge myself and the documentary medium, and like, you know, tell immersive stories rather than observational. I've done all kinds of documentaries, interview based and historical based. But what I love is telling real time docu-follow and then making it almost look like a narrative and feel like a doc, and really challenging myself to um, make it feel like it's the point of view of that character. Uh, and I guess just I'm out there looking for stories, and people are sharing stories. And this particular one, Jamie Patrikoff, who, as I mentioned, we worked together on my first project ever 20 years ago, and he subsequently produced my first feature documentary, Confessions of a Superhero. And then now this. He texted me this video of this, at the time, 11-year-old boy who was dancing barefoot in the rain. And that's the video that went supernova viral. However, he sent it to me probably a week before it went viral. It stumbled upon it on the internet, or on social media. And it had a few hundred views, I believe, less than 1,000. And it didn't say a name. It didn't say Anthony MADU. It didn't say Nigeria. So I went down the social media rabbit hole to see who posted it and who reposted it, and found the kid. And within a week, I was on a Zoom with Anthony, who I came to find out to be Anthony, and his family. And that's where the journey began.
And what do you enjoy most about your work as a filmmaker, and what do you enjoy the least?
um Collaboration, I'd say the most. I really love the think tank mentality. And in this case, I've always directed alone. But in this case, and I've told diverse stories from different communities and cultures from around the world since day one, but I wanted to try something different. And I felt in my gut, a lot of it's gut feeling. Like, you get your 10,000 hours, but after that, it's, a lot of it's instinctual. And I felt like to tell the best version of this story was to collaborate with a Nigerian filmmaker. And I went down a second rabbit hole of connecting with different filmmakers. And I met a filmmaker named Joel Kachi Benson, I call Kachi, in Nigeria, who had a similar, I don't know if I'd say upbringing, but path as Anthony. His path was documentary. Anthony's was ballet, but both of those are uncommon professions in Nigeria as a boy. And we collaborated, and that's just one example. Or with Jamie Patrikoff and Katie and Rachel, my producers, collaborating with them, being open to other people's ideas. It might come up with a third idea none of us had thought about. Really collaborating with the cinematographers and creating a look and feel. What do I not like? I don't love dealing with logistics, which we wear many hats in I'd say independent film, not just documentary film. And a lot of there's just stuff off camera you have to deal with, like just logistical stuff that is challenging, and can divert your attention. It's not my favorite.
Right.
They have great producers that always solve it.
Yeah, I've talked with a lot of filmmakers. They always said the least thing that they like is funding, and trying to get funding for their work.
Oh, thank you. Yes. That's probably the least favorite. Yeah, because I really love to just be in the sandbox with my creative partners and to make something. I feel like I'm not doing my job if I'm not doing that. And so when I'm in development and I'm looking for funding and lots of meetings, they're all necessary, but I'm an animal that likes to just be out there building stuff, and whether that means on set or in the edit, you know? So yes, I agree. I forgot about that. I probably blocked it out, that part of it.
But where do you hope your career will be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Um, as a director, I can only be at one place at one time. So to scale up, it's just continuing to look for, beautiful stories that inspire people. Like my goal is really, it's about the process. It's about the journey, not the result. And I just want to make films and help others make films that make us feel. End of story. It doesn't all have to be save the world stuff. Um, I think MADU is, yes, it's about Anthony, and yes, it's about ballet, but really, what is it about? It's about Anthony's journey for acceptance and belonging, right? That's the theme, acceptance and belonging. My last film, Audible, which was nominated for an Oscar, that was about it was a coming of age story, documentary short about a group of deaf high school students. The film 95% is told through sign language. Also about acceptance and belonging. That's a universal human theme that a lot of people can relate to. And if you can see a deaf person persevere and be resilient, if you can see a disenfranchised, bullied kid in Nigeria persevere and be resilient in ballet, then maybe that inspires everyone to sort of dare to dream. And even though you have a dream in front of you that seems impossible, that's just the thoughts in our heads, those which are often lies, right? Um, Continuing to do that, just to evolve that, to evolve my craft, to be of service. Ultimately, I consider myself of service to the film, the subject of the film, my collaborators, and and I'm also kind of growing as a producer to elevate other filmmakers to tell their stories and stories they're passionate about.
And do you have any advice for up and coming filmmakers?
Yeah, yeah. Learn your craft, like really nerd out on it and try to get better and better, get your 10,000 hours and just go out. The only way to do that is go out and make stuff, less talking about it, and go make it. And like, even if it's on even if it's on your iPhone, right? Go make stuff. It doesn't all, and think about the process. Don't think about right now if you're going to get into a festival or if it's going to win awards. Like that comes later. That's after you're done making something. If you focus on that word on the page, that shot, that scene, that sequence, that act, that eventually whole film, and just be present. And I know that sounds a bit metaphysical. It is like being present, not future worrying, and just being present to what's happening on set. Because sometimes there's going to be challenges. It's not going to be easy. But if you're curious and you're present, you will get around that challenge. You will. And you might even find an opportunity that's even better than what you thought. That challenge might create an opportunity. And so just keep making stuff. You're just going to get better and better and have that confidence, and stick with the process and the journey, and be present to it. And that's where the magic happens.
Well, thank you for that, Matthew Ogens. Thank you for your time, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Richard. I really appreciate you. Thanks for having me.